Our beds are places of rest and comfort. They are also where we are in our most vulnerable state.
Mazerto. I went through a period in my early 20s in a house I lived in where I would wake up to the bed shaking. The bed was a steel frame, spring bed, so it was more apparent with the squeaking of the springs. This happened countless times, but the strange thing was that I would feel almost drugged but aware. I know this could be related to sleep paralysis, but it is strange nonetheless. Anonymous. Hi all. Recently, when I've been trying to sleep, I've noticed that my bed starts shaking. It feels like someone is shaking the footboard of my bed. I had the same problem when I was younger and now it's started back up again. I'm in a different house, different bed. I have lived in the house for years and never experienced it before. I read a thread where a guy experienced the same thing and his doctor diagnosed it as panic disorder and prescribed him alprazolam. The reason I know that's not the case with me, my husband felt the shaking too. He was the one that pointed it out. Hurley 11. Has anyone had any experience with their bed shaking at night with no obvious cause? After my husband passed, sometimes it would feel like someone took their knee and hit my mattress as hard as they could. This went on for about a year on and off and finally stopped. It never scared me for some reason, and I was always awake when it happened. Trill Seeker. My brother is a very serious military guy, but he's had this happen to him on several occasions and he can't come up with a rational explanation. He thought it was an earthquake the first time until he realized his bed was the only thing moving. It's happened a few times, and usually lasts 5 minutes or so. It's not the washing machine, not earthquakes, he just wakes up to a steadily shaking bed, and it's something even a skeptic like him has a hard time rationalizing away. Mars. During the summer that I turned 11, my bed started to shake uncontrollably and with no explanation. As soon as my head touched the pillow it would begin. Didn't usually matter if my eyes were open or closed, but if I sat up it would be gone. The longer I let it go on without sitting up, the more violent it got. Certain nights I thought my house was collapsing, even though I knew that it would stop the second I was upright. As soon as the shaking started, it was like this dark presence entered the room. I never saw anything, but it was like the air was saturated with negativity and fear, if that makes any sense. To further prove how flipping unexplainable this was. 1. I do not live anywhere near a fault line, so it was definitely not an earthquake. 2. It was faster than a grown man could shake it. I slept in a loft bed at the time, and the screws, or whatever held it together, would get loose and need to be tightened every once in a while. My stepdad wanted to test how loose it had become, and he pushed and pulled on the frame, moving it back and forth while I was on it, and it didn't even come close to the speed that it rumbled at during the night time. And 3. I wasn't asleep. This never happened after I had already fallen asleep. It was always as I was relaxing. It would start anywhere from 10 seconds to 3 minutes after laying down, but never more than that. I was always wide awake for all of this. I've always been able to perceive bad energy in both people and places, and that apartment was just oozing despair and hate. I swear whatever was making my bed rumble like that was inhuman. It felt more like an evil force than a person. Bendio. This has been happening for a couple months now. Every once in a while my bed will start to shake. It's nothing extreme, but it is definitely shaking/vibrating. My girlfriend feels it at the same time I do, and she says she experienced it at her old place before moving in with me. Anonymous. I fell asleep in bed watching TV and I woke up to my bed shaking. It was the bed shaking that woke me up. It maybe only lasted 2 minutes, but it physically woke me. I've never experienced anything like this before. I even looked just behind me at the bed frame while it was shaking, and I could see the bed moving against the wall. K. So ever since I was little, right before I went to sleep, it felt like someone was shaking my bed. The one time I really remember it happening was when I was at a friend's house when I was 11, I stayed the night. Now she was usually scared to sleep in her room, but since I was there she did. Well, We were about to sleep and I had my eyes closed and felt the bunk beds shaking violently. I heard her climb down and leave the room. She went to sleep in her mom's room. The shaking continued while I closed my eyes in fear. For the past year, and in 2 different houses no less, I have experienced the strange sensation of my bed rocking from side to side beneath me. This has happened while I am fully awake and cognizant, and my girlfriend has noticed it as well. My old home was right next to a very busy roadway, so I figured passing trucks, etc. might have something to do with it, but I now live on a very quiet street and have just experienced it yet again. My experience. It was about 2 a.m. when I was startled half awake by my bed shaking. There are boards under my mattress that act as rafters holding up the mattress. I could hear them creaking. I was sleep paralyzed while this was going on. When one is sleep paralyzed, they cannot move, they cannot shake their mattress. I thought, what is this? This isn't possible. The shaking stops and I finally escape my bind. I got up and looked under my bed. Did a board slip? Did an animal mysteriously get into my room? Why did I hear the boards creaking? There was nothing there. I can't talk about this to anyone because it is crazy talk. You probably just dreamed it. It was just a nightmare. Heck, if somebody told me this happened to them, I'd think the same thing. It scares me. Last time it felt like something was in my mattress pushing up in different spots. This time it is the bed shaking. Just when I thought it was over, it happened again. The worst part is when I think it is over. But I'm not in control. It is.
The devil attacks us when we're asleep because he knows we are most vulnerable when we are alone. When you experience these encounters, it is futile to tell anyone. This is between you and the others. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist. The Bible tells us, then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He knew Jesus was alone and he tempted him. Matthew 4:1.